Welcome to the Fright Lab. I'm Lucas Yoakum, and this is the 22nd entry into our 2025 31 Days of Halloween, 31 Days of Horror, 31 for 31 challenge. Tonight, we're talking about one that I know slipped underneath most of your guys' radar, but good God, you need to give this a watch. It is 2018's Dachra. It's a tale as old as time, Dachra, its plot. A trio of bickering college students get in over their head with a village of deeply insular witchcraft practitioners. There's not a single member of our audience who hasn't been there at some time, right? I mean, what's the deal? That's a bad joke. You know what? Let's skip that, shall we? Dachra is one of these movies that just every so often lands, largely because of streaming platforms like Shudder or Tubi. I initially heard about Dachra on Shudder, watched it on Tubi this time. That comes out of the blue, does amazingly well, and leaves you wondering, how am I just now hearing about this? I think if it came from anywhere else, I don't know that we'd get the notice, but Dachra has kind of a neat history. So, word on the street, we'll say, is that Dachra is actually the first internationally released horror film from the country of Tunisia. And I believe that to be true. And if it is true, it's probably also the first international film out of Tunisia at all. And as a result, it is out the gate with big punches. Dachra is scary and gross and gritty. And it's scary and gross and gritty in ways that, honestly, we've kind of all seen before, actually. I don't know that I would say Dachra is wholly original in its conceit or any of that. I will say its execution is exceptionally gritty, and that's a lot of fun. And the one thing that I will say about that is this makes me think a lot about originality. Is this movie doing anything original? Not really, but I'll say that it's playing with horror tropes in a way that haven't really been done before. Originality shouldn't necessarily be the name of the horror game. There's only so much storytelling you can do, only so many scary things, at least until someone finds something new, which happens now and again. But for the most part, Dachra is playing with a lot of cool ideas in this very extremely well-crafted, intense, but most importantly, sincere way. It is trying to scare you, and if you're anything like me, this movie turned my stomach a little bit. It is a hard watch in a lot of places. So, tread lightly with Dachra. But it is worth considering that there is a certain level of culture that may be involved here. Now, I'm obviously not an expert on Tunisian culture. Not an expert in most things, as it turns out. But this movie is doing something really, really good. And I wonder if the team who is responsible for Dachra, director, writer, etc., if they were aware of how good this was out the gate, or were they just saying, this is my story and this is the story I want to tell and this is how I'm doing it. I would love to know how Tunisian culture has impacted this film, how it affects its symbolism. I've been thinking a lot about the way culture affects horror symbolism. And I think in our next episode, I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. But for being a director's first feature, which that seems to be the case for this director, it's done really well. It's super duper smart. And something that I want to point out visually about this movie that I don't think I saw in any of the reviews that I read about it is the use of color. It has this very washed out color palette, and that's not that weird. A lot of movies kind of play with color saturation and things like that. But this movie uses the color white in this very weird way. It shows up more in the background and in the structure of the film. The color white appears a lot, and it's really, really cool. Typically, when you think of a color background that causes other colors to really pop out, you think black. You put a color like red on black, and it's very visually striking. But you can do that with white on some colors, and I think visually it does a lot of really neat things for Dachra. I don't know what the cinematographer was thinking there. It's a kind of a curious decision. I suspect, quite frankly, a lot of it is just there's a lot of white buildings in Tunisia, so you got to work with that. But it looks great. Another thing I like about it is that it's a little hard to pin down location and size of things. A lot of this film takes place in a village of highly insular witches, as I said at the beginning in that joke. But it's hard to get a bead on how big of a space it is. It's a little disorienting. I see that a lot in horror movies nowadays that don't give you the layout of stuff and make it make sense quite so much. Like you think about the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. It is one of those things that is, the whole thing just feels laid out funny. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And that helps with the horror. It allows you to never feel like you're really on your feet at any point. I've got to say, visually, I think Dachra might be the best movie I've seen this Halloween season. If not the best, it's one of the most interesting. And that's not something I say very lightly. I do like films that are visually very rich, films that have a particular style or a very particular sharp thing that they're going for. You see, it's a thing you'll see in kind of like trick photography, is a black and white photo, but there's one colored object in the photo. You know, you have a black and white photo of someone holding an apple, but the apple is the only thing that's red in the entire frame. It's a neat trick and it looks cool most of the time, and I really like it when I see it. So yeah, the film is very unnerving and it's very rattling. It has that thing that was happening a lot in the 2010s. Again, this movie came out in 2018. That I saw a lot in horror movies in the 2010s, and that was kind of a maximalism that I really like. When people are screaming their flipping heads off. They sound like they're dying, which, you know, good thing in a horror movie. Chances are they're under threat in the film. I like that the film feels very frantic and very active and wild, but it's also kind of fucking with you with the timing a little bit. The main characters are never really in control, so to speak, of their own schedule. And there's something really scary about that in a way. Not that, you know, having a busy week is scary. I don't have that kind of anxiety. I have other kinds of anxiety, but that everything is frantic and happening fast and they're not able to slow things down or make things obey. Dachra very much to me feels like a horror of discomfort, a horror of not being in control, which is weird because apparently Dachra in Arabic means place of refuge or place of safety, something to that effect. I would love if we have some Arabic speakers in our audience to like email me and correct me or fill me in on some cultural context that I might be missing there, because man, what a brilliantly dark thing to call a film that is so deeply uncomfortable and definitely not a safe refuge. It's top to bottom, man, Dachra is a great time. So, should you watch Dachra this Halloween season? As much as I'm going on and glowingly talking about this movie, I've got to tell you that I wouldn't recommend Dachra to most people, having watched it end to end now. Dachra is a gross, violent, gritty, very unpredictable film in a lot of ways, and it does not spare you or anyone. No one in the script is necessarily safe from harm, let alone your nerves by the end of the film. So if you're not into that kind of horror, yeah, it's spooky, but it's not spooky like ghost story spooky that you would need, you know, that you can just kind of shrug off. It is not an easy watch, but if you like your horror a little more intense, a little more violent, a little more out there, Dachra is not a bad choice. So yeah, I caught Dachra on Tubi. I believe it's streaming some other places, but you know, Tubi's kind of a gold mine for stuff like this. So are you going to go give Dachra a watch? Friends, siblings, you got to let me know. If you're going to watch Dachra, what do you think of it? And if you're not going to watch Dachra, what are you going to watch in its place? Can you think of any other villages of highly insular practitioners of witchcraft in a film? You know, the thing that everybody talks about when they go to the movies. If so, I want you to reach out to us at the Fright Lab podcast at gmail.com. And when you do that, let us know what you think about it. In fact, title that email, A Village of Highly Insular Practitioners of Witchcraft. Otherwise, if you don't, I won't read the email. And you have to wonder if I'm joking about that. So in the meantime, let us know what you think. You can contact us there at our email address. We are on YouTube. We love our YouTube comment section. It's always a good time. You can reach us on Discord. That Discord address is everywhere, all over our website and the like, so you can find it there. And in the meantime, as you guys are logging off tonight to go watch a horror movie of your own, maybe Dachra, maybe not, I want you to think about Lucas Yoakum, me, who writes and researches all of these episodes, and Joseph Wren, who is our wonderful producer and is most of the time my co-host, because we're thinking about you and we appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll talk to you all again very, very soon. And hey, enjoy that horror movie tonight, guys. It's Halloween time, right?